Hey, everybody. Man, I hope your summer is going well. Is it hot enough for you out there these few days? Ready for this thing to burn off. I don't know about you. It's just been crazy. So good to see you. My name is Jared, one of the pastors here. If you're with us for the very first time, we're extremely glad you're here. If you have been around for a while, we're extremely glad you're here. We're in the middle of some renovations, some things that we're just changing around here to accommodate more people in groups, to make our space here a little more beautiful. So thank you for putting up with our dust. Several of you have stopped me for really the last month or so and said, how long is this going to go on? You building an ark around here? What in the world? But we're hoping second week of December, this will be wrapped up. And so for Christmas, hopefully we get a brand new building. It'll be very, very cool. So one person excited about that, which that was my dad. Oh. Just kidding. My dad's online right now, probably watching. Hey, Pops, how are you? We are in the middle of a series called Seriously, and the heart behind this series is that as a church, we want to take following Jesus serious. I think you've met Christians, I've met Christians, I've been a Christian before who Jesus is sort of a neck up experience. We check a box, we say, yes, I believe, but in terms of our life, we're not actually following him. And we just don't want to be that kind of a church. We don't want to be that kind of a place. That's sort of a lame thing, wouldn't you agree? We want to actually take Jesus serious and actually follow the person of Jesus. And so what we've been doing throughout these weeks together is we've really been looking at how something that gets broken in the book of Genesis, which is you, it's me, it's not just Adam and Eve, is put back together in the person of Jesus. And that's the good news. And that's what we're going to see together today. And where we left off last week is that Adam and Eve, and we said this is true of us, we start hiding at some moment or some stage of our life. We start hiding behind a fig tree, and it could be our Myers-Briggs test. It could be something from our past, something that we're embarrassed about. We start to sort of hide. And what we see when we open up the book of John, which we're going to do in a few moments, Jesus meets us there when we're covered in the fig leaves, and he invites us to be accepted and to be loved. We're going to meet a woman today in the Bible. She's not like going to be here in 15 minutes. We're going to meet a woman in the scriptures who's covered in fig leaves. And really whether you're a Christian or not, the power of this story is because this is what Jesus wants to do in your heart and mine. He wants to surprise you. That's his goal. I don't know if you are a surprise person. Any surprise people here? You love surprises? Man, this is a sad crew of people. Like, nah, Christmas is the worst. I am learning to love surprises, especially with kids, because I realize the same thing that makes Halloween great is the same thing that makes Christmas great. It's the element of surprise. It's that moment when you walk through the haunted house. I don't know why we do this to ourselves, but we love to be freaked out. We love the surprise. It's Christmas morning when you wake up and you see the present under the tree, and surprise, you did not know that was coming. It's an awesome thing. And so around our house, our kids, they love surprises. Even last night, we were going on a walk as a family, and Dane and Hayden, 7 and 5, they'll run like 40 yards ahead in the dark, and they'll hide behind bushes. And Rosanna and I, walking the dog, kind of wait for them to, jump out and scream, which is horrific every time. But they love it. It's sort of their favorite thing to do. And so we constantly are going back and forth. A couple weeks ago, Dane had, I think he jumped out from behind something at the airport and scared me. And we were about to get on the plane, and I told him I was going to get him back. And I said, buddy, unfortunately, I lost your ticket, and we're about to get on the plane. I said, and you can't go on the trip. I'm not saying I'm a good parent. I'm just telling you what happened. Sort of like reverse therapy every week here. He said, well, what am I supposed to do? I said, well, you've got to sleep in the airport for the week, And I was thinking of that Tom Hanks movie, The Terminal. He's going to love it. And I can't believe I'm telling you this. He starts sobbing in the airport. And I was like, surprise. Bottom line, Jesus is better at surprises than me. Okay, so If you have a Bible, turn with me to John chapter 4. If you don't have a Bible, that's okay. You can follow along on the screens. John chapter 4. Surprise. We're going to look at this story of this woman. No kidding. At the 8:30 service, at this exact moment in the talk, the fire alarm went off. And everyone kind of thought it was part of the surprise of the day. And oh my goodness, we figured out it was somebody's kid in the nursery pulled the fire alarm. And this is true. You can't make this stuff up. If you saw the kids coming in today, everybody's dressed in Halloween costumes, and literally it's like these two kids, one dressed like a fireman and one dressed like a policeman. They got to meet a real fireman and a real policeman this morning. We're gonna baptize those kids. We are. One day. So everything's just going smooth this morning, you know? Okay, anyways, John chapter 4, starting in verse 1. Now Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that he was, my paperclip, there we go, was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John. Although, in fact, it was not Jesus who baptized, and this is sort of the disciples' way as they're writing this to let you know they were very important, but his disciples. So he left Judea, and he went back once more to Galilee. Now he had to go through Samaria. Now much has been made of this. If you've been hanging around church for a while, you know this. Jews and Samaritans hate each other. This is a 700-year war between the two. And it all has to do essentially with who takes their faith more serious. They were a part of the same sect. They both worshiped Yahweh, but they had different emphasis, but they hated each other. And you knew these were two groups of people that they didn't talk. And it was very unusual for a Jewish man like Jesus to travel through a Samaritan town, but he does. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. Now, we typically kind of read over that part of the story, that it was about noon, but it's actually the most important part of the story, because in the ancient world, and this is true in lots of places in the world today where you don't have access to clean drinking water, wherever the well is, you go as early as you can to get the water, not for spiritual reasons, but because that's when water's the coldest. And so you've maybe done this before. I've done this before in various parts of the world. The well's pretty crowded early in the morning as everybody's going with their bucket to get some water. Not this woman. She's there in the middle of the day when she knows she's going to be alone. And we realize this in a few moments, in a few verses. She's a moral outcast. She's an outsider. And so she's covered up in fig leaves. She doesn't want anybody to know where she is. She doesn't want to feel that stare of judgment of people. She's an outsider. Now, the reason this is important as we read it is because you probably have something in your life that makes you feel like an outsider. Something that makes you feel like you're on the fringes. You don't quite belong. It could be your education. It could be the color of your skin. It could be the family that you come from. It could be something in your past, a divorce. And when you get together with those friends, it could be something about your kids that when you show up to hang out with all of your friends, their kids apparently belong on Pinterest when they talk about them. And yours are struggling, and you feel that sort of ache, and it makes you feel like an outsider. It's that part of you. We all have it. It's soft tissue. It's a tender place. It's not the first thing you bring up in conversation. You don't meet people and, they say, well, I was the first one in my class to graduate, or first one in my family to graduate with honor. You're not like, well, I was the first one to get pregnant out of high school. It was fantastic. It's that place that's, we begin to cover it instead of clean it. And we all go through life with something, soft tissue, the tender place. And nobody in life expects more than what they think they deserve. That's just sort of how life works. You don't expect more in relationships than you think you deserve. I've been this good to this person. I expect I deserve this kind of treatment back. In education, I went to this college. I got this degree. You expect you deserve a job that is equivalent with that. That's how life works. This woman, she expects that everybody's going to ignore her, and she thinks that she deserves it because of her past. And there's probably a place in your life, that soft tissue, that tender place. You might even think you deserve that feeling. Well, of course I should be depressed. Look at my choices. Well, of course my marriage has fallen apart. Look at the choices that I made somewhere along the way. And Jesus confronts this woman. He confronts us. He meets us in that soft tissue, that tender place. And that's what we see as you move forward with this particular woman. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. And she would know, Jesus would know, Jews do not take anything from the hand of a Samaritan. Samaritans do not take anything from the hand of a Jew. This is the sort of how you dissect the surprise. This is how he works. It's unexpected. She's not waiting on this to happen. And this is, if you're a Christian, this is how Jesus has worked in your life. Nobody plans on following Jesus. It doesn't work that way. Nobody said on their 15th birthday, when I'm 17, on my 17th birthday, that's when I'm going to follow Jesus. You cannot plan this out. It was at a season of your life. It was in a moment of your life. It was unexpected. Jesus, he came, he met you, and you began to follow him, and it was a great surprise to you. That's how Jesus works. If you keep drilling down on this surprise, in the culture of Jesus, it's a shame-honor society. It's a traditional society. And you receive your value in the world of Jesus, this is true in many parts of the world, based on how well you play by the moral code. How good of a job you do living out the moral code of conduct in that particular world. Your morality determines your value. And so this woman, she's lost her value because she has loose morals. She's failed. Our culture doesn't work that way unless you maybe grew up in a conservative or very traditional or religious household. You don't get or lose jobs based on your morals. In our culture, what gives you your value is not your morals, it's your merits. All sociologists would describe our culture in the United States as a meritocracy. It's just what we live in. It's what you do. It's why you posture yourself the way that you do. It's why you drive what you drive. It's why you live where you live. It's why you went to the college that you went to. When we talk about the corporate ladder in America, it's not just more responsibility. It's not just more money. It's identity is literally climbing. It's who you are. You are what you earn. It's a meritocracy. Now notice in Jesus' context, a traditional society, what does he do? How does this surprise work? He rejects every distinction of a shame-honor-based society. He crosses the line. He should not talk to this woman. He sits down next to her, and he does. In our culture, if we're going to be people who decide, if we are a church that decides to take Jesus seriously, you know what it means for us? It means we would reject every distinction that a meritocracy puts on somebody. I don't mean that in terms of, just plunging into socialism. It's not a political sort of a thing. It means that if for you, as many of you in this room, you've been fortunate, you've well-educated, good jobs, you're on the top end of the food chain in the meritocracy system of our world. It means at work, when you encounter and you engage with people that do not expect you to give them dignity, you would surprise them. Because you recognize your value does not come from what you've earned. You would be a surprise to somebody at work who, when you walk through the hallways, people are kind of nervous because of your title, but you're giving dignity and honor to people. You reject the distinctions of a meritocracy. On the other side of it, if you feel like life has been tough, you haven't gotten the breaks that you wanted financially, vocationally, you would recognize that doesn't make you less valuable in our society, that you are a person in the presence of Jesus that has determined your value. We would reject the distinctions. Like Jesus does. That's how we surprise people. That somebody would come to our church and they would look in a room like this and they would say, why are all those people hanging out? They don't belong together. They don't wear the same kind of clothes. They don't drive the same kind of cars. They would be surprised at our community. When we talk about this idea of the table as a church, a table is not just something you own. It's not a place that you sit. A table is something that you are. That you would go through life as a great surprise to people. That you offer them a place at your table. You offer them a place. You're an invitation for people to feel accepted and when they've actually felt rejected time and time again. That's who Jesus is. He is a table. It's not just a place you sit. As you take Jesus more and more seriously, it's something that you become in the world. And that's who Jesus is. He's a table. And so he sits down next to this woman, and she's confused the whole time. And she said, "How can you ask me for a drink?" In verse 10, Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God," and this is where I think things probably got a little bizarre. "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asked you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." What a bizarre thing to say. If you knew essentially who I was, you would have asked, and I would give you this living water, sort of a strange thing to say. But this is how the surprise always works. Nobody's ever looking for Jesus. You're always in the process of looking for something else, aren't you? You were looking for love. You were looking for power. You were looking for status. You were looking for acceptance. This is how the surprise works. Nobody ever is looking for Jesus. We're always looking for something else. The first week of this series, we said that everybody, whether you're a Christian or not, you have a conviction. It's something that sits at the center of your heart. It's that thing that you worship. It could be money, it could be status, it could be relationships, it could be power. But it's that thing that your heart has merged with. It's what you would die for. It's what you ultimately live for. It's your conviction in life. And we said as a church, our conviction, we really have one, it's Jesus. The resurrection of Jesus, that life comes from him and through him alone. That's our conviction as a church. And nobody at 5 years old or 15 years old just sort of wakes up and decides, well, yeah, I'm ready to do that. We're always looking for something else. In this woman's case, she comes to the well. She's what? She's just looking for, Jesus says, "Hey, do you want some living water?" And she's going, "I was just looking for running water. That's sort of my goal today, sir." We're never looking for Jesus. We're always in the process of looking for something else. It's how the surprise of Jesus works. And he says, living water. This is the metaphor that he uses for himself. And that's sort of a bizarre thing to say, especially in our culture in the 21st century world. We don't really understand thirst, certainly in other parts of the world where over 1 billion people have difficulty accessing clean drinking water. But maybe after a hard workout, you're a little parched. But in the first century world, this was a powerful thing to say because she would understand, everyone would, that water is actually scarce. It's difficult to get. And you have to have it because, and we all sort of understand this from biology, your body is made of water. At another level, your body is also made for water. And if you don't drink it, you literally, within you would die. Your tongue would swell up. You would die of dehydration long before you would die of starvation. Your body is literally made for water. And this is Jesus' point. In the same way that your body has been made for water, your soul has been made for Jesus. And if you don't drink him, if you don't take the water into your soul, well, it shrivels up. It thirsts. It longs for something. We've all experienced this. At some age, some stage of life, you decide you want your heart to merge with something. We do this at a very early age. Maybe at some stage it was a political cause. It was, I want to be a certain kind of a person who takes things seriously. I want to be a person of morals. I want to do the right thing with my life. And so that political cause, whatever it was, that became your conviction, what your heart merged with. But what happened? The candidate let you down. You let yourself down. You were thirsty again, weren't you? It could be a relationship at some stage of life. a lover. You want somebody, and so you give your heart to that person. You merge your heart. You want that person to sort of be the center of your life, but they let you down. They broke your heart. You were thirsty again. Your soul's made, you know it, to merge with something, to have something at its center. It's how we're all built. You and me. It could be your career. It could be when I have some kids. That's the idea that my heart is going to merge with, is the penultimate of life. What happens? You retire, your kids grow up, you're thirsty again. And Jesus is saying your soul was not made for any of those things. They could be good things, but your soul is not made to merge with him. And it's why you go through life so dehydrated. Because your soul has been made for this living water of the person of Jesus. And until you actually drink me, he's saying, you're just going to keep coming back looking for something else to give you that satisfaction. You're like, your body is made for water. Your soul has been made for the person of Jesus Christ. And until you drink him, you keep coming up dehydrated time and time and time again. And so this woman, she's sort of confused at this. She's not quite sure what to do. And it says in verse 11, "Sir," the woman said, "you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep." And her point, I mean, just sort of imagine her standing there holding her bucket going, "You don't even have a bucket. I don't know your name. You're offering me living water. I just came for running water, and you have nothing to draw with." And she says, "Where can you get this living water that you seem to be so proud of? Are you greater than our father Jacob?" Which would have huge significance to the Samaritans who gave us this well. And their war was really one of geography. So the Samaritans are located, Samaria, I'll move on from that, and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his livestock. Jesus answered, and this is sort of the power of it, "Everyone who drinks this water, the running water, everyone who gets what they think they're looking for is going to be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst," Jesus says. This living water. "Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water, welling up to eternal life." And this eternal life, it's not, you pray this prayer and you get to go to heaven when you die. It's from the Hebrew phrase, it would be Elom Abba, which just means a harmony with God can be available to you now. This life is gushing forth. You can experience this now. It's not just a momentary thing, but you can have this deep, abiding peace in the presence of Jesus when you actually drink him down, and when you actually take this living water. And I think if we're honest, quite often, I know this is true for me, at some point, maybe it was in church, maybe it was in vacation Bible school, maybe it happens every week. We kind of know Jesus is the water. And so we come and somewhere along the way, somebody says, "You should have the water. You should take the water. You should take the person of Jesus." And so you pray the prayer, or you sang a worship song, and we kind of sip the water. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I like it. But then we go throughout the rest of our week and we get frustrated at ourselves. We're down, we're up and down. And at times our faith makes it worse because we feel bad that we follow Jesus and yet we can't seem to find peace. And I know this is true for me. I think quite often we've sipped the water, but eventually you've got to put your faith that this is actually going to satisfy you. You actually got to drink the water. And I know you've seen the water. I know you've sung songs about the water. But have you actually drank the water? That's the question. And quite often we look at the water, we go, well, my Uncle Frank, he drank the water and he seemed to, he drank it and it, kind of worked for him, but I don't think the water's going to work for me. My mom, man, she loved Jesus her whole life, right up until she died. But she drank the water. I don't know if I can drink the water. My grandma loved Jesus. She drank the water. I don't know if I can drink the water. Eventually, you've just got to decide to drink the water. And you've got to allow this river, and it's not church. I love our church, but our church is not the water. Our church is like a water stand next to a river saying, hey, you got to get in. I love DJ and the songs we sing, but the songs are not the water. The person of Jesus is the water. And eventually you've got to just have faith that the water, the person of Jesus can actually satisfy you. And it can't just be, I'm going to sip it and kind of go through life. No, I've actually got to lean my existence. I got to merge my heart with the water. I got to take the water. I got to taste and see that the Lord is good. And it becomes apparently like the head of Metolius inside of you. It becomes like this flowing, gushing stream that cannot cease when you start to drink and actually take the water. I know you've seen the water, but have you drank the water before? That's the question. And you're curious. The water is interesting. You've seen other people, but you've got to drink the water. I've got to drink the water, and nobody can do that for you. Nobody can do it for this woman. But when you actually take it, oh my goodness, some kind of a peace. Doesn't matter what happens. In The Lord of the Rings, in book 3, J.R. Tolkien's, obviously the movies, but the books, there's a character named Pippin. And Pippin and Gandalf have gone through some really crazy circumstances. And Pippin is confused at the nature of Gandalf because he seems to be joyful, laughing in the face of the circumstances. And I think this is a great description. Obviously, J.R. Tolkien was a Christian, and so many of these stories have these deep themes. But he says this is Pippin describing Gandalf. This is the kind of joy that's available. In the wizard's face, that's Gandalf, he saw at first, this is Pippin, only lines of care and sorrow. So on his face, it seems like some despair. And it says, though, as he looked more intently, he perceived that under all there was a great joy, a fountain of mirth, enough to set a kingdom laughing were it to bust forth. That's available to you. When you've actually not just sipped the water, not just sang a song about the water, not just read about the water, but you've actually put your faith in the water. You can be sad, but you're not unhappy. You could be crushed that things did not go the way you wanted them to go, but you are not abandoned, you are not alone. And deep beneath, there's some kind of source of life that sustains and holds you up, and nobody can take it away when you've actually drank the water. And Jesus is saying, come to the water. Come drink it. It's available to you. It's available to this woman. And so she has a choice to make. And so she's sort of on the fence. What am I going to do? The woman said to him, Jesus, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water. So she's curious, which we all get to at some point. Everyone you meet is at least curious about Jesus on the surface. It could be because you grew up in church. It could be because you heard Kanye's new record. I don't know. But you get curious, like, who is Jesus? Who is he? What is he offering? What is this person about? That's where this woman is. And eventually you have to leave the realm of intellectual curiosity and say, I'm going to put my faith in the water. I'm going to actually drink the water. I'm going to merge my heart with the water. And so she's saying, what do I need to do? Maybe you find yourself there. What do I need to do? Okay, tell me about the water, man. You seem excited about the water, Jared. How do I get the water? Well, Jesus says, he told her, go call your husband and come back. Verse 17, I have no husband, she replied. Jesus said to her, you are right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you have had 5 husbands. And the man you now have is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true. This is the moment when you take your iPhone and you throw it out the window. Like, how did you know that? How did you know? Like, I just had a conversation about Pottery Barn. Why do I have 5 ads for Pottery Barn on my phone right now? Well, what's going on? And so she's like, you're reading my mail, dude. Like, what? And this is how Jesus works. That soft place, that tender place, that part of you that's been covered time and time again, but never cleaned. Jesus surprises you right there. And he enters in. Where other places in society and culture, you thought you didn't deserve it. Jesus comes. And the whole time he's doing this and he's saying, listen, whether you are a Christian or not, whether you ever decide to drink the water or not, your heart is going to merge with something. You're going to worship something. You're going to give your life to an idea, to a person, to a salary, to a company, to bring you a kind of joy that you hope it can give you. Your heart is merged with something. It's going to, all of us. And Jesus is essentially saying to this woman, for you, it's men. Men are running your life, and you're not happy. Guy 4, you didn't figure it out by guy 5, and now you're off to guy number 6, and you're going to keep coming back. Thirsty, it's not going to work. And I love this about Jesus. He does not come to condemn her. He comes to convict her. That's his goal. And there's a huge difference between those two. If you ever sat in a church service and you felt condemned, if you've ever been at the Bible study and you felt like you were getting some weird eyes from the people around the table, if you've ever been in that moment and you're like, I don't want to ever feel that way again, the voice of Jesus is never speaking with condemnation. That's always the voice of hell. The voice of Jesus speaks to convict. The Spirit of God comes to convict, to ask you what's in the bucket. And the shift can't happen until conviction happens. The shift can't happen until that wound is seen, until you have that moment of going, you know what? For 40 years, for 20 years, I've been putting the wrong thing in the bucket. I think it's time that I actually begin to drink the water and begin to put the water in the bucket. And until you get there, you can live your life a long time just sort of in that conviction state. And you hear that, and you go, well, I wish I could drink the water. I just don't have enough faith to drink the water. I'm, in an iPhone, Google world, how can anybody believe water, Jesus, can actually satisfy you like that? And I meet people all the time who say things like, I wish I had more faith. Let me tell you about my aunt. Let me tell you about my preacher growing up. This guy had faith. You read stories about someone. I wish I had that kind. I wish I was like Tolkien. I wish I was like C.S. Lewis. I wish I had that kind of faith. As if faith is something that we have to conjure up or create. Faith is not something, this is Jesus' point. Faith is not something that you go and create. Faith is something that you transfer. We all have faith. It's not a Christian concept. It is a human reality. Your faith is in something. In this woman's case, her faith is in these guys. And Jesus is saying, transfer it. Drink the water. Drink the living water that can actually begin to satisfy. Listen, you don't have to cook up some adoration for Jesus. You don't have to make it and manufacture it and get to some point where you're finally bubbly and effervescent and emotional enough to become a person of faith. You already have faith. It's in something else. You just transfer it to the water. And as you do, you see what this woman sees. Oh my goodness. I can now experience something I've never experienced. That's what he offers us. That's what he offers you. And so this woman, she takes the water. She drinks the water. And it says, verse 28, I love this. This is sort of how the story comes to a conclusion. Then leaving her water jar. So she stopped looking for what she was originally looking for. She's found the penultimate of joy. The woman went back to the town and said to the people, I love this. So the very place of her wound, the very source of the rejection, she walks back into town. Good to see everyone today. Hi. Yes, you remember me. I was the scorned one that everybody was rejecting yesterday. I'm doing fantastic today. Good to see you. And it says, come and see the man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? They came out of the town and they made their way toward him. I don't think they're as curious about Jesus at this point. I think they're curious about this woman at this point. That morning, she felt rejected. Now she's going to come see the man who told me everything ever, as if she's excited about it. Because she had experienced rejection, but when you have stepped into the presence of the water and you have experienced that deep acceptance that washes over your soul and flows into all the cracked and covered places, you don't care who rejects you. You don't need it. You're not looking for it because you've put your faith in the water to be the thing that gives you that joy. And it frees you. You now experience an incredible freedom to go through life. You can sit at a table with friends and they're talking about their job. They talk about what's going on with them. And it's all just trending up and to the right, but for you, it's just been on a downward slope. And you say, man, things aren't going too great for me at the water or at the job. And instead of sort of defaulting to covering it up and trying to act like it's not a big deal, you just say in that moment, but you know what? I still have the water. My identity was not in that. And I'm drinking the water. I'm crushed, but I'm not dehydrated. You get together with your friends, they're talking about their kids and all the things that are going great, and you're struggling. It's been an uphill fight. You're not quite sure if you even know what to do. And you sit down at the table and you say, yeah, this is happening, but I still have the water. It could be the other way. Things could be going great in your life. Everything could be trending up and to the right, every moment going great, and you don't even know what to do. But your friends ask you about it. You say, yeah, this is happening, but you know what? That's not the thing that gives me the life that I have. It's the water that's giving me the life that I have. Because all that could dry up. This is never going to dry up. And so we go through life and you have to promise you'll never be dehydrated when your heart merges with the living water of Jesus. And when we talk about table groups around here, we talk about finding your way to a table, and we talk about being known. The goal is not that you would just have more head knowledge about the Bible. The goal of table groups is not that you just show up and, study the Bible. That's great if that happens. The goal is that, I know for Rosanna and I, quite often at our table group on Wednesday nights, we just show up, and sometimes it's just a declaration of dehydration. We're going through this. We're fighting through that. We don't know what to do. And there's not an answer on the table. It's just that person that you're looking at who's going, are you drinking the water? You got to have the water. And I get to sit in a circle on Wednesdays and see other people who are drinking the water. And it gives me more courage and confidence in my own faith. But the invitation for all of us is to come and to drink the water. Anybody need the water today? You need the person of Jesus to be the gushing stream of life that could never go away. Let's pray together, and DJ's going to come and lead us in this powerful song. We'll sing this together. Jesus, we thank you. I've been to every broken cistern in town. I've drank from every busted water fountain possible. I've had what feels like my tongue swell up, King Jesus, because I'm dehydrated. I don't get it. Why again? Why again? Why again? Why am I still thirsty? And all of them have been just like breadcrumbs on the trail that lead me to the ultimate fountain of Jesus. And I pray today, God, maybe somebody's holding some breadcrumbs. They're holding on to a relationship, they're holding on to a job, they're holding on to status, but they're dehydrated. And they need the living water that when we experience it, we never have to cover up again. We never have to feel rejected again. We have the full confidence that the God of the universe has said, you are loved, you are seen, you are known. The fig leaves are torn off. We thank you for that, Jesus. And I pray today within the sound of my voice, whoever needs the water, would they drink the water? Would they experience the water that does not end and does not cease and cannot be extinguished? You are not a broken fountain. You are the fountain of life, King Jesus. As we sing about that, would it be true in our heart? Would we come and drink the water? It's in Jesus' name that we pray. All of God's children said, amen. Let's sing together.